you are at a school where they don't give you a lovely binder and you get meetings with them all the time and it's wonderful, like you need to find them, email them, say, hey, can I have a meeting with you and discuss, my students, what should I do to be helping them? It'll just be to your benefit and to your students' benefit if you do that.
Being like in primary and when they first come in, a lot of them do not come in identified. I have a few friends that have come in identified, but for the most part they don't. So for me, it's observation, trying some strategies consistently, and going back to the drawing board if need be and trying to figure out what else is going to help that child be successful, what else would be best for them to try, what fits with their personality. And as a classroom teacher who's been in the classroom now for 5 years, I still don't have all the answers. So I lean on my special ed department often for new strategies, things to try, websites, books to refer to, because at the end of the day, I'm still trying to document and figure out what's going to work best for this child and possibly end up turning that documentation over to someone that's a diagnostician or someone who is better able to support that child in like tier 2 or tier 3 for RTI. Now typically tier 2 is done in our classrooms, but if not, I am able to hand them over, hey, this is what I've tried, don't waste your time. Hey, this is what I've tried, this definitely works.
So every Tuesday and Thursday, I have a co-teach / para that comes in, and right now we're reading the play 12 Angry Men. And so what he'll do is take and I have inclusion class, it's my 6th period, right? So he'll take a cluster of the students and read the play in the library, somewhere quiet, and then he'll bring them back and then they'll participate in the discussions. But see, what happens is a lot of the kids, especially like when you're 15, 16-year-old, like you know what's going on, right? So then they start to like mock the students, so they'll know when you're being pulled out. So we have to do it in like a discreet way. So you'll come up with different ways, like, okay, I have this person present in my room, but I don't want it to be like the other kids are making fun of the kids that are like need extra help. So we started doing it like right before class starts or like towards the last 10 minutes of class. So like work outside or in the library. So you just kind of work with it. You find what works for your students. So to where they're not embarrassed or they feel like they we're withdrawing. So, yeah.
Well, I've helped with them in various ways. I had a co-teach come in my room last year. And basically she would pull small groups for me. So she'd pull my SPED friends and then she'd pull my low friends. And it was awesome because she had worked in the grade level before. So she took them and I'm like, thank you. So I can work with like my middle row of the children. And so she would help me in that way. But then we also had math interventionists. So when I saw something struggling, like, hey, I noticed so-and-so's like counting like this or they're doing this weird strategy or they're not subtracting correctly. What's going on, help me. And so they would, one of them would come and pull the kid, gave them one of the tests that they have, and kind of got them on a road to like, okay, here's what you can do with them, or hey, you need to push them further in RTI, and they gave me some advice. And they also, like she said, tons of resources. Like they had taught math for years, so I'm like, I'm teaching my kids this strategy, but some of them don't get it that way. What else can I do? So it was nice to have them as a sounding board. Now I work with a parent who comes in my room almost every day, and it's nice to get feedback about, like, how do you think it went? She is also my behavior management, so it's a flexible relationship if you make it. Now, some people don't make it that comfortable for them. I'm just very, like, hands-off. Okay, this is what I need you to do, and I also ask just for advice, like, hey, what do you want to do? How do you think they're progressing? Because, you may think one thing, but, having that sounding board is nice and be like, oh, well, I don't think it's really working, or this is working really nice in the class. So they can be a really good resource for you. They have resources. So just work with them. Be good friends with those people. They are really a big help.
Yes, they are.
I feel like a lot of times the SPED department, at least on my campus, they feel neglected, as though like the general ed teachers that go and converse with them, and they always like we talk about that a lot. Like people only go and talk to them when they need their paperwork done or they need some assistance of some sort, and it sucks, right? Because then you feel like I haven't even talked to this entire department that lives in, or we all teach at the same campus. So yeah, they're 1 to 2. They're special as well. So yeah, they're unique.
They're also really helpful to come in and do some observations. Like if you don't really have good descriptors to explain a child in a meeting, or you would like a second opinion, or some sort of verification as to what you're seeing and is it right, is it completely off, they're great to come in and do some observations of that child independently in a small group, in stations, and they're awesome about giving that feedback as well.
Or sitting in on parent conferences. We had a situation when I was actually student teaching. We had a baby that was just super low. She had major gaps. And I started noticing, because I was grading her, I'm like, asked my mentor, like, what am I doing wrong? She's like, it's been like that. And so we had our interventionists come in and realize there's just some foundational gaps. So she couldn't grasp the material at the level we were asking. But she actually came and sat in at the parent conference and was able to speak to that from the math interventionist and then from like teacher perspective, and just had multiple perspectives that makes it easier to work with the parent, because sometimes parents are tough to work with. Sometimes they don't want to believe what you see, but if you hear it from multiple people, you can't help but believe what, housing multiple people found the same thing. So I know that they'll come in and do that. They don't mind it at all, and they even have recommendations sometimes for parents. Like I know for us in our district, the new math, parents like, I didn't do it that way and I don't like it. And they have books to help with even struggles like that. So that was helpful for me last year too.
Parents also never want to believe anything's wrong with their child.
Yeah.
They want to believe the best about their child. Plus, they might not see what we see in the classroom because they don't work with that child or work with their child in that light. They work with their child on a social level, possibly a behavioral level, but when it comes to academics, most of them have not had the experiences with their child that we've had. So definitely having that SPED person in the classroom with you, seeing what that child is going through, seeing what that child is struggling with, seeing what that child is doing really awesome, to be able to speak to that in that parent conference or in that meeting for sure. Backup is always helpful.
I think that goes back to how you said if you were talking with the parent, you really need to frame it in a way that's, you're not saying there's something wrong with your child, your child's bad. It's, hey, this is what I noticed. I want to help your child to be the best student that they can be, and if that requires giving them extra support, that's okay, because we just want to help them succeed at school.
And also know where they're coming from too. Like we had one that they had just received dyslexia services the year before. So the issues he was having, they wanted to give it some time to see if it was just dyslexia or something further. So also give parents that time to have, because that's fair. Like maybe it is just dyslexia. We will never know if we just give everything. So she was kind of reluctant, but when we, sat down and talked to her, okay, that's why you did it, because we were under the impression, from our view, we were hearing, oh, they never signed the paper, they didn't do this and that. But little did we know, she wanted to wait out the year of dyslexia and, relearn all the sounds, phonemes, all that, because it is a big chunk before third grade, before she moved on to the most, the biggest part of it. But once she got that, we were able to work with her and move past it and get him the tools to make him be successful and ultimately a happier human being. But sometimes you have to realize that parents are coming from a certain angle that sometimes you can't understand. I don't have kids. I love your child. I'm doing everything I can, but know that they're coming from a place too, and hear them out. Don't go all the way always with school gossip, because some kids get a reputation. Give them a new blank slate. They can be a complete different human being. I'll tell you today, some people are like, well, in your class, I have so-and-so, they act like that. I'm like, no, I've never seen that. I've never seen that side of them. You never know the impact that you have on that child because of your personality or your way you welcome them and make your climate. So give them the new blank slate, just like you would yourself. Let them be them for that year, not so-and-so was this in second, first, and K. And I think that's a big part to identifying too. Are we identifying what this teacher felt because this teacher, we all tolerate things differently? Is she just more adept to that, or is there actually a real problem? Because sometimes it's hard to see the difference. And I'll tell you, being in middle school and elementary, the way, we go about saying things is a lot different. So just give them that new year to start over and prove to you that they can be this, or prove to you that they did live up to what people said. But don't just take people's word for golden, because people, they have all kinds of different stuff in their classroom, maybe 100% different from yours, and their kids will say, oh, Miss So-and-so wasn't like that. I'm like, okay, well, you're in my class now, or Miss So-and-so did this, why don't you do this? Well, you're in my class now, like, I don't do that. So you'll find that, but don't let that deter you from seeing the good qualities in those kids, because it happens a lot more than you think.
What about the other students, as far as accepting the student with a special education need in class? And do you see any bullying going on, or do you have to do anything to make sure that they're accepted and part of the group? Or but just how do the other students respond? What do you do to help make sure that they're part of the group as opposed to be apart from the group?
In high school, there's a lot of bullying because the kids know. But at the same time, students like responsibilities, kind of like in elementary school, when you give them like a leadership role. So in the beginning of the year, there was lots of that, especially in my inclusion in 6th period class. There's only like 18 students in that class, and so this one child specifically had to like talk to him about it, and I was like, rather than like bullying, why don't you help them? Why don't you help the other kids? Because you're brilliant and you get the content much quicker than the rest of the class, and that like just fed him, like that just gave him so much like confidence, and so like he's kind of like whenever we have the laptops out to work on writing assignments, he's always like quick to help people, and like just having that one conversation just like changed it all. So, but in high school specifically for my secondary educators out here, there's going to be lots of bullying. You need to address it as soon as it happens because it keeps happening over and over, and you don't. And they like feed off of it and they shut down. We don't want them to shut down, because if they shut down, you feel like you failed them.
In kinder and first, at least in the last 3 years, I've had a lot of kids with behaviors, because once they figure out you're capable of handling, helping, supporting those kids with behaviors, you seem to be the target every year. So from my second year of teaching on, I've had kids with major behaviors. My second year of teaching, I had 2 kids that ended up being identified at the end of the year as emotionally disturbed. But regardless of who they were with, whether it was myself or my partner teacher, because that was the year I did reading recovery, these kids notoriously would destroy a classroom, like start throwing desks and chairs and stuff. So we'd have a code word to clear the room. And that being said, those kids with behaviors did stick out to their peers, and nobody really wanted to befriend them and really develop that relationship with them in the beginning, when they realized that their peers were different from them and there was a safety issue, so to speak. So several days in a row, those particular children that were identified with the ED were out of my classroom. So I made a point to pull them down to the carpet, and we read a book, and we discussed celebrating other people's differences, and we talked about finding the positive qualities in that child, and we talked about how we have to support people when they're struggling. And we can't sit and point and be scared of them. There's no point in being scared of them. It's absolutely crucial that we get to know them and the positive qualities of them. And we talked about how we could see particular behaviors in them that were kind of their triggers. So knowing not to continue to push that button further, knowing that they had to kind of be a gauge for that. And if they saw something that they knew was a trigger for that child, trying to help prevent further things from happening. If they knew, for example, like something they said would set that other child off, not to say that, or warn friends like, hey, he's having a moment, let's give him a break. If they were like in a group activity and I wasn't over there to monitor them. So believe it or not, at 6, 7 years old, my kids were very, very good at that and very aware. But it was just taking the time to have that conversation and teaching that code word to know that, hey, my class needs to clear the room, and here's where you go. Here's what the routine is. So-and-so is going to start the hand signs, because they played hand games a lot where like they would mimic each other. So they had some sort of a structure or routine in place. So when they cleared the classroom, it didn't become a circus in the hallway, and I wasn't worrying about 2 situations. I was just handling the one situation. I also had one of my more competent and verbal kids go to the front office and get my assistant principal in moments like that, because even though my campus is an open concept campus, so we have rooms on the perimeter, and then all of the rest of the classrooms are pretty much like divided by furniture. And everyone's pretty much able to see and hear. Believe it or not, all these other teachers are in their own world. So even though they hear a desk flying across the room, they've tuned it out because they're focused on their world in their classroom. So having that more competent child go to the front office and get my AP, and then my AP get our campus compliance coordinator, so they could both come help and support in that moment. And then if we needed further assistance, of course getting that. But helping my kids that were still like in the general ed classroom without those struggles understand that it's okay that these kids have that struggle. We just have to support them through it, and here are ways that we support them.
One thing that I love to do that I think I've noticed that it helps kind of build a community in the class is I do the sort of I call them team building activities, the sort of stuff you do at the first day of class or the first week of class. I try and sprinkle that in through the whole year. You know, obviously you can't do it every day because you need time to teach. But we do this thing in my class. It's called, I call it the burger game only because I have like a little burger pillow we pass around. And so students will submit a question, something like, what's your favorite TV show? What is your favorite thing to do at recess? Things like that. And then I'll read the question and we pass it around the little pillow and answer it. So I noticed that helps them see, hey, this person who I thought was so different than me, we have both the same favorite TV show. We have something we have in common. And so it kind of helps them to see that, you know, we're all the same. Even though we have differences, there's things that we'll have in common. This year I did have one student, like one of my highest students, say to one who goes to like math intervention, he's stupid, that's why he goes to math intervention. And I got so mad, but I had to have a talk with them and say, there's nobody here that is perfect at everything. You know, even if you're really good at math, maybe you're less so at reading, or even if you're good at every subject, you know, maybe you're not the best at sports. So there's no reason for you to say that person is stupid. You know, you just have to kind of have conversations with your class like that.
Yeah, speaking to what she said, your climate that you build. So I did like community circles like she did with my elementary kids almost every morning, and people would be like, that's crazy. I said, no, it's not. Because when you get their buy-in, that's all you need. The academics are super important, but the buy-in of the relationship is 1,000% important. And you can tell the difference in how your kids respond to you, and when people come in, they'll notice like, why do they like that? It's that relationship. And even in middle school, like I talked to them at the beginning, I said, look, I know everything's new, I've been where you are, I know how elementary is, and I'm learning middle school too. Just know that I'm not perfect. If you don't expect me to be perfect, then I won't expect you to be perfect. I said, but no, everybody's at a different place, but we're gonna have a good year, and every day you start new with me. So like, I know my other class made me so mad the other day. I'm like, okay, it's a new day, even though I really didn't feel like it's a new day. It's a new day, we're gonna start new. And give them that chance to be kids, and just build that. Like I make it very whatever. I don't make a big scene of so-and-so, you need to get this and that. Just give it to them, do it, whatever. I did have a student that was friends with a student that was calling him stupid, and so I pulled one of them aside and I said, answer this for me. I go, is that your friend if they're calling you stupid? Do you think you're stupid? No. Are they your friend if they're calling you stupid? No. I said, so, because, you know, you can have talks with students sometimes. Sometimes that doesn't help. I had a little student that's just kind of a mean-spirited, and I was like, I would not be their friend if they are going to say things like that about you. And it's okay to have those conversations sometimes, and say, hey, and I'll start the other student like, hey, you can't say what you're saying. I can't stop you from thinking it, but you need to stop saying it in my room. And same kind of thing. You are good at this, but you have somewhere where you're not so great. So don't think you're all, you know, high and mighty above everybody else. But just be real with them on that level. I told my kids when we had Red Ribbon Weekend, I said, let me tell you something. Anybody who doesn't do good things shouldn't be around. But anybody that doesn't influence you to do good things not your friend. They're not. I said, learn who your friends are,